Don't have too much more to go, but I also want to do this a little bit here. The idea is to pass a parameter to change the format of the name that we're returning with our function, right? So similar to that one slide in the PowerPoint where we changed the format of data being inserted into a table, but this is actually quite simpler, right? So to come back over here then, what I would need to do is come back to my create statement that I started off with. And now it is underlining it because there already is a function of that name in the database, but I'm going to alter it. So it gives me a chance to review alter. Okay, so alter function, basically again though, I'm replacing the old version of the code of the function with a new version when I do an alter like this, right? So I can make any changes that I want, it'll just replace it with the new version. So as for the instructions, we'll just add a new parameter. Since it's to change the format of the output, maybe I'll just call it format. And for the data type, well, I mean, there's not really a right or wrong here. I mean, the two keywords that were kind of suggested in the question would be either full or formal name. So formal, F-O-R-M-A-L, so like, 10 characters would definitely be enough to hold either of those. If you want to go bigger, right, it's a design decision, okay? I'll probably just stick with 10 at this stage for this example. So a varchar 10. I mean, you could set up any kind of a, sorry. If you wanted to have some kind of a flag value, even a bit that you would pass in or something like that, just you'd have to document it somehow. Okay, so that'll be my last parameter here. So what I could do then is come down here. This much is the same. I still need a variable to work with as I'm developing the answer to send back. But what I would do is I would have a decision structure. Instead of just simply assigning this, okay, I would decide whether or not am I going to stick with this formal name or am I going to go with a full name, right? So my comment, well, maybe I'll put a new comment here. Test which format is requested, right? So that'll be a simple if. So my @format variable. Now there's no right or wrong about this either. It's again a decision up to you as the designer, as long as you get permission from the client, if this makes a difference to them. But in the earlier PowerPoint slide, we tested each individual value. Was it this? Then we'll do this. If it was something else. But really, in a situation like this, I'd be tempted to check for one of those values, and then if it's anything different, just go with the other assumption, right? Is that right or wrong? Well, there is no right or wrong. So we'll go with that until it proves to be a problem. So I'm going to look for formal. Okay. So if it's formal, then we know we need a formal expression, right? I don't really need all this begin and end stuff, but I'm going to throw it in just for clarity. Maybe I'll indent that. And then we have else. So I don't really need to do another test. If it doesn't say formal in the parameter passed in, I'm just going to assume. I know what assume means. Everyone's heard that one, I'm sure. Assume full name. Right? Well, I'll have a begin and end here. Okay. So, assuming the full name, well, that's this right here, right? Just stick that in here. Assign the expression for full name. And I'll just indent that a little more. Actually, this plus, this could easily be up here, right? It's really just that. So that's the expression for full name. Okay. So if it's formal, well, then we have to do something up here. So I will assign the expression for formal name. So we just have to modify this expression a little bit. So a formal name is last, right? Start with the last name, comma, space, and then really comes the first name, always, because there's no null allowed there. So at F, And I'll just take this out here. So really it's just deciding then how we handle the middle initial being tacked on the end. Now after the first name, okay, I'm going to need a, assuming for a second that there is actually a middle initial, I'll need a space, and then the middle initial, and then the period, but I don't want a space after the period. That would be the last character, right? Oh, I'm missing the plus sign. That's why it's yelling at me. Okay. All right, so that should do, I think. So we have last name, comma, space, the first name. That much is guaranteed, and that might be the end, right? Because we're not going to add anything else. We have an empty string in here still, okay, for our substitute expression. So we check is null. We can evaluate this entire expression because the whole thing will return null if the middle initial is null. And we've done this a few times before. So if I do have a middle initial, then I have space, the initial, and a period. If I don't, then I don't add anything after the first name. So that gives me the two different ways. Okay, so I should be able to execute this alter command. Oh, successful. So I didn't have a syntax error. That doesn't mean that it necessarily works logically. So now to call this, I'll actually get an error right now, right? Insufficient number of arguments supplied. Okay, so I need to actually add that fourth argument here. So let me just, I'll say full. Truth is, I could put anything there but formal, and I should get the exact same result. It's my IntelliSense is behind, so it thinks it's wrong even though now it's right. There we go. Control-Shift-R. I'm going to have to learn to remember that. So we have the exact same output we had a minute ago because we are getting the full name, just exactly what we had a minute ago by default. Okay, so let's change it to formal. We'll execute, and there we go. We see the difference. Notice it wasn't case sensitive, right? But now we have last name, comma, first name, then the middle initials, because this last one doesn't have anything after Charles, because nothing gets added if the middle initial is null. So we can see the flexibility then, right? We've not only encapsulated all that logic into a single function, right? We've even added the option of specifying we want to use this for full name or formal name format. A little documentation would help to understand that you have to say formal if you want formal name, but it's doing the job. Okay? So that basically wraps up that simple function example. I'll stop recording there.